Hi, I'm Sonja Ingebritsen, pastor of Community of Hope UCC in Madison. Racism was designed to be crafty, to be a shapeshifter, so that we who are white have to neither see nor take responsibility for its cruelty. Racism has had centuries to bake into our theology and church institutions, our government, and society at large. It was ridiculously easy for me not to have noticed for many years that I was white, much less what that meant. Growing up, I learned that racism was about individual white people being mean to individual black people. My family was nice, and we didn't encounter many black people, so by this definition, clearly, we weren't racist. So I didn't give much thought to racism. The people I lived around, the school I went to, people at my church were almost universally white. White was just, normal. I certainly didn't think of it as a race. I was 23 before I had a close friend who was black. It was also the first time I encountered white people who were conscious of themselves as white. This marked the beginning of my re-education process. I learned that racism was not simply about my newfound awareness of my own prejudices, which I had and have, but about the very systems that steeped me in racism. When I moved away from those friends who had taught me and with whom I'd done some anti-racism training, I took their education and my good intentions with me. But it wasn't long before I was, for the most part, enmeshed in whiteness again, and all of my primary networks of work, church, and friendships. My racial remembrance was awakened again in seminary as I tried to sort out the talk about racial incidents on campus. I became part of a dismantling racism committee and made connections with students, faculty, and staff of color. There's a lot to say about that period of my reformation, but perhaps the most significant impact was acknowledging the reality that I, as a white person, can step into or out of racial justice work as it might be convenient for me, while people of color cannot. I can do this with little to no consequence to me, whereas for people of color, this only happens at their peril. The effects of racism are a 24/7 concern. When I finally understood in a deep way that my white privilege allowed me to tune out racial justice at my discretion, and that doing so perpetrated measurable harm to my black and brown siblings, I committed to be accountable. And so I keep learning, teaching, preaching, protesting, and praying about racial justice. I am friends with both white people and people of color who help me stay the course. I work in solidarity with communities of color. I put my money where my mouth is. I take risks even when I'm afraid. And I make mistakes. Lots and lots of mistakes in both what I do and what I fail to do as a racial justice advocate. But this commitment I made helps me keep getting back up again. The costs of racism to people of color are matters of life and death, and to white folks a matter of healing our very souls. There isn't time to sit out this dance. And if I claim to be a follower of Jesus, I'd better do just that. Walk in the way of Jesus, who taught me the righteousness of subverting every system of oppression.